everybody, I'm back again. I wanted to do a video on how I build my cradled wood panels. As you guys know, I don't paint on canvas, so I build everything myself here. I use a really thin plywood like this. I get from either Home Depot or Lowe's, depending on who has the better price at the time. Sometimes they change. I cut them down to size depending on what I'm going to be painting. So this one, I believe, is 12 by 48. I'm going to be building a 12 by 48, two 24-inch by 24-inch panels, and also a 36 by 18 panel. I might make one more depending on what products I've got left over. If I have enough supplies to do it, then I'll make them. I'm going to show you my entire process. You've seen this part to where I already have the wood cut down. Next thing I'm going to do is start cutting my strips. They are 1 by 2 select pine. I picked that up from Home Depot as well. This can be done either way. Either you can do a 2-inch profile, or 1 3/4 actually, and wrap that around to where that's the outside of your cradled wood panel, or you can flip it sideways for a low profile 3/4 inch. That's what I'm going to be doing today. I want my panels a little thinner. I want a little lower profile for these next few paintings that I'm doing, and then we'll move on from there. So it'll be in little clips, and enjoy the video. Hopefully it helps you guys out. All right, so now that my face panels are cut, you guys know what sizes I'm doing. I'm taking about 4 of these 1 by 2. Sometimes I buy the 6 foot, sometimes I buy the 8 foot, depending on the panels I'm making. I've stacked about 4 of them. I'm gonna cut a 45-degree angle on all of these. The measurement doesn't matter yet because this is gonna get fit to each panel. So once I cut this 45, then I'll measure out where the next 45 is gonna be. All right, so my next step here is I've got my face panel ready. This is gonna be sanded down later and done with 2 coats of gesso as my actual painting surface. But I've got my 1 by 2 strip. I've cut the 45-degree angle at this end, as you can see. Once that's cut, I will take the face of my panel here and I will set it on top of it. I'll line it up on the corner to make sure that lines up nice, and then I'll come down here and line up this side. Now this is where I was talking about cutting this 45 didn't matter where yet. So what I'm gonna do is mark here, and that's where my next 45-degree angle is gonna be cut. So I'll just flip my saw the opposite way, or I'll just flip the piece of wood, whatever I need to get the angles pointing in towards each other and make my next cut. My first piece is cut now. I've got a 45-degree angle on both sides. So what I'll do is set it down. I'll put the face panel right on the front of it here to make sure it's exactly where I want it. I don't want it over, and I definitely don't want it under. But if it's over, I can go back and shim it on the saw a little bit, just cut a little section off. But this one lines up perfectly. The good thing about that is it's gonna make my next 3 cuts easier. This already has a 45-degree on it. I'll just flip it, put it back in the saw, and I'll use this piece as a template to put on to cut my next 3 pieces to build the rest of the panel. Stay tuned, we'll do the next part. So my next step is gluing and tacking this together now that I have all 4 of my pieces cut. They're all exactly the same size. I used the first one as a template to make sure the other 3 matched it. Next thing I'm gonna do is show you guys what I'm using. I'm using a brad nailer. I do it this way. Some people glue the panel down and then clamp it all the way around. I prefer to use brad nails and then fill back the holes later. So for this panel specifically, what I'm gonna do is, since I'm doing a 3/4 inch profile, I'm going in with a smaller nail. I'm going in with a 5/8 inch nail, which is a pretty short nail. Most of the time I don't use anything less than 1 inch, but I'm doing the 5/8 because I'm doing the lower profile panel, versus the other way when I build my 1 3/4 profile panels. When the actual piece of wood is upright like this, I can use a 1 inch nail. It doesn't matter, it's not gonna poke through. So right now we're going with the 5/8. I'm gonna put these to the side. I've got my wood glue here. We'll see if it wants to play. You can be pretty generous with the wood glue since this is gonna have a wider face to it. Once the wood glue is down, I'll put the face of the panel straight on it. On a side note, one thing I have done is tested the pressure on this to see how far the nail will shoot in. I've already done that with a test piece of wood so the nail doesn't shoot too far, but also doesn't stick out forward. I've got my pressure set, and all I'll do is, once this corner's lined up, I'll just pop a nail in each end, and then make sure the center is nice and flush. If I've got to push it a little bit, boom. So our first side is done. 3 more. and we'll have a panel. I'll show you guys the results. Okay, so we are all tacked and glued together. As you can see the face of the panel here. I'm gonna flip it over so you can see how the back looks. One thing I didn't mention before that I'd like to go ahead and point out now is that when you're gluing your strips, make sure you glue these corner joints as well. You want a good tight fit, and you also want that glue to help hold everything together nicely. On my 24-inch by 24-inch and some of my smaller panels, I don't do a cross brace. If I'm doing a bigger panel, if I'm doing a 24 by 48, or if I'm doing 48 by 18 or something like that, I'll use a cross brace in the middle to kind of help support the whole thing. This should do pretty well in supporting itself. The next step I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna show on here. This is just the panel building video. I'll do a panel prep video separately. But I'm going to sand this face down with 220 grit sandpaper. I will do a coat of gesso. I will sand it with 220 grit sandpaper after that gesso has dried, and then I will do a second coat of gesso to make sure it's good, solid, there's no missing spots, there's no patchy areas. And then I will sand that again with 220 to give me a nice, clean, comfortable painting surface. And then I'll begin painting after that. So I just want to say thanks for everybody for watching this video. If you want to look at where I get the supplies, I'll post some links down below of exactly what products I'm using. And then you guys should be able to make some of these art panels yourself. All right, so now that I'm finished with the actual panel building part, I wanted to point out a couple things and kind of wrap up this video with showing you guys the difference in the two panels that I do. This is the 24-inch by 24-inch panel we just built. This is the low profile 3/4 inch, mitered on the corners. This is yet to be prepped. We're gonna do that later in another video, like I said before. The next thing is, I wanted to go ahead and show you guys something I didn't have out there while I was there. This is the 1 3/4 profile or 2-inch profile panel. It's built the exact same way, mitered corners. The only difference is the wood is flipped up and I use a little longer nail to hold it in. This panel has also been prepped and gessoed. The surface is ready to paint on. And that's just what I wanted to go over with you guys. So thanks again so much for tuning in. If you have any comments or questions, put them down below. I'm happy to answer. If you're going to plan on doing something like this for yourself and you're looking for a little advice, I'm happy to give it to you. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to go ahead and do that. And I'll see you guys next time.